know most of you. I'm KC, and yeah, I represent Western Boulder County, Gilpin, Clear Creek, Grand, and Jackson counties, and I love saying that. It rolls off the tongue, and it's such a fantastic district because it's one of the only one that goes over the western slope. So very diverse, and Gilpin Heart is just right at the center of it. Gilpin County is right at the heart of it, what I was just saying. And I remember coming to this fundraiser when Claire Levy was still in the seat. And in fact, Jeannie, where'd Jeannie go? She keeps calling it Claire Levy's seat. And pretty soon it's definitely not theirs. I won't be in the seat for long, and there will be a new person in about a year and a half because I am term limited. I will be done, but I have one more session to go, and it's going to be a big one. This past session, I keep saying wherever I go, it was just a transformational session, but now I have Andrew Romanoff in the room, and he's a former speaker. So it was the best session ever, but I think Andrew will have something different to say about that in years. Yeah, it was at least time. But we really had an incredible year because we had a trifecta. We had the biggest majority of Democrats in the House ever, 41 out of 65 members. We had the most diverse caucus we've ever had, and we had the first female majority House in Colorado ever. And we're one of only, and we're one of only two female majority caucuses or chambers in the United States. So that is huge. It's huge. Yeah. I just want to comment that you don't have to be huge.
What's the other state?
Nevada. Oh, no, I'm sorry. New Mexico. New Mexico. New Mexico's House is the only other one that has a majority of women. So we have, out of 65, we have 35 women. Almost all of them Democrats, to be honest. There are about 8 that are Republicans. So we have made it a priority to recruit women to run and to train women to run and, support women as they run. So that's really reflected this year, not only in just the makeup of the legislature, but in the legislation that we passed. And so it was transformative. It was a huge, huge year. Some of the significant legislation we passed this year is climate action. So we put enforceable climate goals in statute that are economy-wide, that will really nationally leading climate effort that Colorado, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment will be leading rulemaking to really get all of us reducing carbon emissions from the transportation sector, the energy sector, just a lot of our industry. So that's huge. I think it's absolutely a critical issue in Colorado. So we got that done. One of our we have 3 priorities as we sort of frame our agenda that we're looking at, and it's investing in our future, preserving the Colorado way of life, and making an economy that works for all. So preserving the Colorado way of life, we passed climate legislation. We also passed really significant oil and gas legislation, Senate Bill 181. That really, for the first time in the last 50 years, updated our oil and gas laws to make health and safety a priority as they consider permitting. So, and the industry has not fallen apart, so, as they claim they might. Investing in our future, we passed full day K this year. Every child gets to go to kindergarten for free, no matter where you live. It's a huge additional cost to the state, $185 million. We've had a growing economy, and we really prioritize full day K. Then, an economy that works for all. We are going to pass next year, but we passed the initial legislation to study paid family leave. We did a lot of things to make equal pay for equal women. We passed legislation around that if you're not getting paid equally, you can bring an action in court to say this isn't right. Then we passed legislation to help marginalized communities have a better chance of finding a job, specifically people who are who've been incarcerated. So, and the Colorado economy keeps booming, and our job really is to make sure that those who have the least opportunity get to participate in that economy. So we're still going to be prioritizing that. And one of the other things that was huge this year is the package of affordable housing legislation that we passed. So one thing that's really kind of innovative is every time a retailer, you buy something, a retailer collects taxes from that, they get to keep a percentage of that tax, no matter how big of a retailer you are, how small. So some of these companies, Walmart, huge retailers, we're keeping a lot of money in our taxes just for the sake of collecting the tax. We lowered the amount that they're allowed to keep, and by doing that, we saved, just on the biggest businesses, retailers in Colorado, Walmart, Costco, Target, things like that, we saved $50 million, and that $50 million is all dedicated to affordable housing in Colorado. And that bill was highlighted in the Denver Post today, if any of you were online or if you get the Denver Post. So I think that was exciting, and then increased tax credits so more affordable housing can be built throughout the state, and then came up with a new innovative fund to put $90 million over the next 3 years into affordable housing. So huge push towards affordable housing. Huge year this year for mental health, and we're going to keep working on that. That's going to be an absolute priority for the session going forward. And then a big other priority for us was criminal justice reform. Absolutely. You know, there are too many people in our prisons who don't need to be there, and we looked at bond reform and bail reform and sentencing reform, and we're going to keep trying to give people the best chance they have to be productive members of society. So it was a huge agenda. People keep saying, what about next year? And I'm like, oh my God, please give me a break. So we don't know yet. We're going to keep working on our priorities. I think addressing common sense gun regulations is going to be a big priority. As I mentioned, passing paid family leave is going to be a priority. We're going to keep working on driving down healthcare costs. We did a lot. That was, how did I just mention that now? Huge part of what we did is really addressing the cost of healthcare. And some of you are going to, the reinsurance bill we passed, it looks like rates on the exchange are going to go down between 18, depending on where you live, 18 to 35% from the reinsurance bill. And that is on track, and it's huge, especially like in the western slope part of my district. Huge impacts to people's bottom lines. So a lot was accomplished this year, and we could only do it because folks like you were out there helping Democrats get elected. And we need you to do that again in the next year, and we're going to keep doing these things that are really prioritizing everyday Coloradans and hardworking Coloradans who want, a better education system, cheaper health care, and health and safety and environment to be top priorities. The last thing I'm going to mention, and I'm talking for a long time, but on the ballot this November is Proposition CC. Proposition CC, does anyone remember REFC from about, yeah. Andrew knows a little bit about that because he led that effort, and he can tell you more. So that was a temporary removal of the statewide revenue cap, sometimes called the Tabor cap. And that just removed it for 5 years. Colorado is unique in the nation that we have a revenue cap. So Colorado's economy can be booming, and the state is not allowed to keep all those taxes from a booming economy and invest it in the things that matter to all of us. So we put on the ballot, we want to remove that cap for forever, not raise taxes, but allow the state to keep the taxes you're already sending us, and spend it in 3 areas: K-12 education, higher ed, and roads, bridges, and transit. It's a third, a third, a third, but we can't do it without voter approval, and so we need every single one of you to support Prop CC. I just think it's a real common sense way to address the fact that Colorado's $2,500 per child per year below the national average for K-12 spending. And to address the fact that we have a gas tax that was 22 cents in 1992 and is 22 cents today. It's not indexed to inflation, and yet cars are more efficient, use less gas, and our roads are more and more impacted. And the fact that with all of this budget pressure, higher ed gets squeezed, and student debt in Colorado is at an all-time high. So I once again want to say thank you for letting me be your representative. Thank you for giving me this time to talk today. Please vote yes on Prop CC. Thank you for being awesome Democrats and supporting the Gilpin County Democrats. And stay in touch.
I'm not next, I'm just doing transition. I do want to give a shout out to Tammy Story, our state senator. It is every election that those of us who are gathered here say this is the most important election that we can ever remember. If we can elect Democrats, and we're going to be able to move the things that are important to us as Democrats forward in the Colorado Senate, in Washington. And while that is absolutely true this year, that we need to work to move forward those things that we as Democrats hold dear, this election really, really is about making sure that not just those things that we hold dear as Democrats are maintained. We have to make sure that the things that make this nation great, our democratic republic, stays intact. It is crucial for us that we remove Voldemort, he who shall not be named, from the White House. Yeah. But we also have our own Voldemort Jr. here in Colorado. He needs to be removed from the Senate.
Amen.
The ability for us to control the Senate is so vital to being able to maintain everything that is dear to us. And that the field is so crowded to represent us in that election is one of the things that says how vulnerable he is and how important it is for us to flip the Senate by getting him out of office. And we have two of those many candidates here with us this evening, or this afternoon, I guess it still is. So I'm going to first, back here, Trish Zornia, if you want to come up and
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Trish Zornia. I'm running for the United States Senate in Colorado 2020. And I want to start off with a few numbers that are relevant to you. And the first one is 0. 0 is currently the number of scientists on the United States Senate Science Committee. 0 is currently the number of scientists employed on the White House staff.
0.
We only have a handful of people with the right expertise in office. We do not have people from my background. I'm a scientist by training, and I'm coming here today because I want to convince you that out of that wild field of 12 or 13, however many we're up to these days, that the one that we need to send is actually going to be the scientist with a background in healthcare and education. Because right now you also have almost nobody with healthcare backgrounds, and you have almost nobody who has actually worked in education on your healthcare and education committees. And we want to change these numbers. And I got into this race because I started believing that we can achieve a true 21st century by including a different type of expertise at the table. Here's another number for you, 142. 142 is the number of years that Colorado has been a state that we have never elected a woman to the United States Senate. 142.
Ouch.
And we have, as Casey pointed out, one of the 2 female majorities. We have the possibilities to elect something different in 2020. Cory Gardner is vulnerable. We can take him on. And I want to do it in a way that not only gives us a vision and a value, but a skill set that is different to help us achieve it. And let me tell you why this is relevant. We're talking about climate change. We need to have some of the best scientists and access to those scientists in office, and somebody who can represent that. If we want to achieve true universal health care, we have to have somebody who's worked in healthcare at the table. When I've been at Senate hearings in DC, do you know who they bring as experts? CEO of Anthem. That's who testifies. We're going to change this. And if we want to set true 21st century visions, like ending gun violence, ending poverty, achieving a true carbon-free economy, clean air, clean water, good healthcare and education, I want to send us with the next generation too. Because right now, there isn't a single person who represents me. And we are the largest voting bloc come 2020. I am 34 years old, I'll be 35 in 2020. And we need to galvanize that next generation to be inspired, to come out and volunteer and knock on doors and make change for our future. I currently teach at the University of Colorado down in Denver. We started classes last week. So I teach neuroscience and advanced research methodology there. And I had a student come up to me after class, and we actually just came from a Moms Demand Action event earlier. And I had a student come up to me after class at the end of the week and say, what is the exit plan if something happens here? This is a generation that we are building in, and I want to make sure that we have a voice to help make sure it's changing in the future. So I invite you to learn a little bit more. I'm going to hang around for a little bit, and I invite you to learn more also at our website, Zornia2020.com. And we're going to be releasing a lot more policies coming forward. And the one thing that I'm going to tip you off is that they're going to be a little different than usual because we're coming from the science side. So it's not going to be the standard talking points. It's going to be a little bit more comprehensive and a little bit deeper, and it's going to be data driven. And so I ask you to join me in 2020 in putting facts, reason, and evidence first, and ask for change that we've never had. My name is Trish Zornia. I look forward to getting to know you more. Thanks so much.
Watch out, Gardner, we're coming up fast behind you. The other Senate candidate that we have with us here this afternoon is Andrew Romanoff.
Hi, my name is Andrew Romanoff. I'm also running against Cory Gardner for the United States Senate. Anybody else want to run? Really, plenty of room in this field. I would vote for any of you, actually, over Cory Gardner. I don't mean to insult you, but the truth is we've got not just the worst president in American history, we've also got a fellow at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue who is enabling Donald Trump's abuse to continue. And I'm happy to talk to you a little bit about the candidacy that I bring and the campaign we're building. And to answer questions you have, I know Trish and I would be happy to do that. I'll tell you, I'll start by answering the question that I get most often. I am no relation to the czars of Russia. The name Romanoff was actually an Ellis Island invention given to my grandparents when they came over from the old country. The original name, it turns out, was Hickenlooper. So, I'm really glad to see my cousin John doing so well. I want to start right again with my grandparents. I wouldn't be in this country if America had not opened its doors to my mom and to all 4 of my grandparents. I'm the son and the grandson of immigrants, and I'm glad we're here. We are richer in every way, not just as a family, but as a country. We are better off economically and culturally and intellectually because we have welcomed people to contribute their talents to a nation that needs them. We don't say that often enough. We don't say that often enough. We've allowed a president of the United States instead to dishonor our heritage, to undermine our moral standing around the world, to demonize immigrants and refugees. A president who declared the country full, described asylum as a hoax, laughed out loud at a rally in Florida when a supporter suggested opening fire on migrant families, and then mused during an interview about the ability that other nations have to line machine guns up along their borders. A president who has caged children and torn families apart. And it's not a great surprise. because when Donald Trump announced his candidacy, when he descended that escalator in Trump Tower, he branded the people of Mexico as rapists and criminals. It should be no surprise when violence follows, when you warn Americans of an invading army from the south, when you use not just a dog whistle, but a bullhorn to embolden extremists, to invoke the language of white supremacy. You should not be surprised when violence follows. The trouble, of course, is that the president is countered by not a single Republican in the U.S. Senate. All it would take is a hand of courage in his own party to stand up and say the emperor has no clothes, that this is not who we are or who we aspire to be. But that's not happening today in the U.S. Senate. In the invertebrate caucus that Mitch McConnell leads, you can't find a single spine. And it brings me no joy to reach that conclusion, because the legislature I helped lead, the place where Speaker Becker and Senator Story, Senator Nicholson have all served, we found men and women of goodwill on both sides of the aisle who were more interested in solving problems than just pointing fingers or picking fights. When I started this campaign 6 months ago, I was hoping that you and I could have a conversation about how we build a clean energy economy, an economy that works for everyone, how we combat the climate crisis, the existential threat that we face, the fundamental moral test of our time, how we create a system of health care for all, instead of forcing families to use the emergency room as their primary source of treatment, how we reform our broken immigration system, how we change the way that we finance campaigns, how we reduce the rate of gun violence, which is taking 100 lives in America every day. And we should have that conversation. But to be honest with you, at this point in our history, under this administration, I would settle for a functioning government and an independent judiciary and a free press and some respect for the role of science and the rule of law, all the fundamental precepts that we took for granted in this democracy at this late stage in our national experiment, under attack from this administration and from its enablers on Capitol Hill. The good news, of course, is that you and I happen to live in a state where we have the chance to do something about that. This is likely to be the single most competitive Senate race in America. The truth is, there aren't a lot of seats in play. There are only 2 seats, in fact, only 2 states where a Republican represents a place that Hillary Clinton carried. Colorado is 1, and I know you're entitled to a free piece of art if you can name the other. Maine, yes. Can you drink that? I don't know what the So Colorado and Maine are likely to be ground zero in the battle over control of the U.S. Senate. And it turns out it's not enough just to remove Donald Trump from office if you don't flip the Senate. This is going to be the most expensive race in America, and you've already seen millions of dollars pour into the opposition. The National Rifle Association, the Koch brothers, the oil companies, the insurance companies, the drug companies, they've all picked a candidate in this race. And it's not Trish, and it's not me. It's the fellow who holds the seat in the U.S. Senate today. I want to just close with a thought on what's at stake, not just about flipping a seat from red to blue, although that matters, but really trying to change the Senate from paralysis to progress. I don't want to wait until January of 2021 to take action on the climate crisis. Cory Gardner has a chance to lead that fight today. He sits on the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee. He could, if he chose, represent a state like ours and reduce our reliance on fossil fuel, accelerate our transition to a clean energy economy. He won't do that. He hasn't done that, in part because he owes his seat on that committee to the same industry he's supposed to be regulating. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but you can follow the money and figure out pretty quickly why members of that committee refuse to stand up to the oil and gas lobby. You dance with them that brung you. And the tragedy, the consequence, the casualties are all of us, because we are swiftly condemning our kids to a world where droughts and storms and floods and wildfires and heat waves like this one become ever more frequent and more destructive, and a world where millions of people now and hundreds of millions in the future will be uprooted from their homes and turned into climate refugees because they can no longer eke out a living in the land that's grown barren under their feet, or in coastal areas where the land is literally washed away. This is not a distant threat. It's present today. And even in low-income communities in the United States where kids can't safely drink the water or breathe the air. You and I have a chance to do something about that. I wish with all my heart that Cory Gardner understood the stakes. And it wouldn't do us any good as candidates if he actually used the power he holds today to start solving some of the problems he's helped create. But we're Americans before we're candidates for these offices. And we've run out the clock. I know there are folks, even in the Democratic Party, who will tell you we can pursue baby steps to solve this problem. That programs like the Green New Deal are too ambitious, too audacious for us to pursue. We ran out the clock on incremental reform years ago. We can't wait to take action. And if it's audacious to suggest that we create a carbon-free future, I'd suggest the most radical thing we could do is what the Senate's doing today, namely nothing. Once upon a time in America, politicians in positions of power, even in the White House, inspired us. FDR did that when he met a similarly existential threat from Nazi Germany and lifted this nation from his wheelchair, rallied the countries on earth to meet that threat and save Western civilization itself. But you don't have to even go back that far to the Roosevelt administration. You can look at what JFK did. In 1961, he spoke to Congress in May of that year, and he pledged, before the decade was done, to land a man on the moon and return him safely to the earth. President Kennedy didn't live long enough to see that dream fulfilled. But we got there. As outlandish and impossible as it seemed in 1961 to achieve a moonshot like that, we succeeded. Not by tempering our expectations or giving in to timidity or surrendering our ideals, but instead by rallying our country. This is our moonshot. I think we're lucky to live in a time when history will reward our ambition. And we're also poised to live in a time where our children and grandchildren will never forgive us if we continue to do nothing. So I hope you'll join us. I hope you'll pick a candidate in this race. I will support the winner of this primary, and I hope it is me. But any of us, I think, are eager to get to work to repair some of the damage this administration has done. And I hope you'll join us in 2020. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Andrew, for your comments, and Trish. I'm reminded of Obama saying that we're the first generation that knows about climate change, and we're the last generation to do anything about it. And I think that that was very prescient as far as we have our marching orders. We can't procrastinate or put it off. So, you know, we have some fine candidates right now that are going to carry this forward. And now at this point, we will adjourn our speech making for a little bit. And when Congressman Neguse comes, then we'll ring the bell and hope that everybody will give him a minute. He'll be catching us up. Casey?
Linda, there are two people in the room who are running to succeed me. Can we introduce them really quick? Sure. So I mentioned I'm term limited, and there are two people in the room who are running for House District 13. And I know they keep getting harassed, like, you're running against Casey, and then they say, no. So we've got Judy Amabile right here. And Lisa Smith. They're both really fine people and fine candidates, and I hope you take the time to get to know them.
Thanks, Casey. Yes, everybody please with other candidates and
bid on the wine.
and bid on the wine because nobody wants to take it home. Thanks so much, and thanks for your support.
Because we'll all be too drunk.
Gilpin County, you all are a sight for sore eyes, I will say. You know, I spend about half my time now in Washington, D.C., and being back home and being able to be here in the community that I love, and of course being able to be back home with my wife and our daughter, Andrea and Natalie. My daughter turns 1 in 3 days. She's totally excited. She's the cutest baby you've ever seen. I'll show pictures to all of you after we're done. But suffice to say, it has been an interesting 8 months in Washington, and I just first want to say how grateful I am to the Gilpin County Democrats for your support. You know, there are a lot of people in this room and they were reminding me as I was walking around, I didn't get to see hi to Jeannie Nicholson yet, who've been supporting me for the better part of the last 13 years. When I was up here running for Regent, and I was, you know, a 22-year-old kid, had a lot less gray hair, was in better shape, and, you know, idealistic about what we could achieve on the Board of Regents. And there are a lot of folks in this room who put their faith in me, and only because of that have I been able to have these opportunities to continue to serve, including now as your congressman representing the 2nd Congressional District. I'm just very grateful to each and every one of you. Notwithstanding what you might be reading in the papers or watching on TV, we're getting a lot done in the House. And if I've learned anything in the last 9 months, it is that elections have consequences. And that has been very clear when you see the way in which, one, the House of Representatives has been able to hold this administration accountable and push back against some of the reckless and terrible things this administration has tried to pursue. And then, of course, in the legislation that we've passed. And, just to give you some context, we have passed over 200 bills that we have sent to the Senate on everything from preventing gun violence, from rejoining the Paris Climate Accords to tackle the existential threat of climate change, right? To protect the dreamers in the United States, to give them a path to citizenship. On virtually every issue of substance, we have done something in the affirmative to help people in our state and across the country. Unfortunately, every single one of those bills has gone to the legislative graveyard that is now the United States Senate. And so when people ask me, what can we do to make progress on any number of these issues that I know we all collectively care so much about, I will tell you the answer is to make sure that we take the United States Senate next year. And you all will play a role in that. And I know there are a couple of candidates here who are going to talk about their efforts to do precisely that. And I would just tell you, it is so critically important that we win the Senate seat here in Colorado, because all of the good work that we are accomplishing in the House, and I can tell you we're doing a lot, right? It means nothing if we cannot have a partner in the United States Senate, and of course, a partner in the United States presidency. And perhaps is a good place for me to at least address the elephant in the room, which is this president. And I spoke, so I'll leave it there. I spoke at a march earlier, actually an hour ago, back in Boulder, a unity march that was organized by some groups there. And as I said to them, I struggle sometimes to find the words to describe this moment that we seem to be experiencing. Right? When you have xenophobia and racism and division, the likes of which we have not seen in quite some time. And very clearly a president that is doing everything he can to divide us along racial lines and political lines, any lines that he could come up with. And it is difficult, for me even, as an eternal optimist. Those of you who've been supporting me for quite some time know I'm always optimistic about our future. It has been difficult. I've had moments in this past 9 months where I just am very deeply concerned about the future of our republic. But what gives me hope are the people who are standing up and pushing back and fighting back. And that starts here in this art gallery with 70, 80 people here on a Sunday evening rallying the cause with the Gilpin County Democrats to take our democracy back. And so I would just tell you, I hope that you do not lose faith in the United States Congress. I can tell you that the House caucus is fighting each and every day for the values that we share, and we're going to continue to do it every day that we have that honor. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving me the privilege of representing you in Congress. And let's go out and let's make sure that 2020 is an election that we remember, right? Thank you all so much. So, I appreciate it. And with that, Casey already spoke. I had this wonderful, where is Casey? Did she already leave? Oh, I had this wonderful introduction prepared for our incredible Speaker of the House here in Boulder, KC Becker. And apparently I've been rocked with that opportunity. So I will just say, I will say this, because I want to embarrass her for a minute. There is so much dysfunction and gridlock in Washington, D.C. And as I mentioned, I spent about half my time there. My wife and daughter, we live in Lafayette and in Boulder County. And so much of her future, my daughter's future, right, is contingent on us here in Colorado making the right decisions. Whether it's great public schools that we'll be able to send her to, or having clean air for her to breathe and clean water for her to drink, right? And the public lands that surround our community in Boulder County and here in Gilpin and across our state. And all of that is contingent on brilliant, progressive, talented, and forward-thinking. And it's not easy being the Speaker of the House and wrangling a caucus of 42 House Democrats from different corners of the state with different interests and different passions. and KC does it so incredibly well. And the accomplishments of this past session, on everything from climate change to the reinsurance program and dropping premiums for folks in the mountain communities across the board. It's an agenda that we ought to be very proud of. And I sleep easy at night in Washington knowing that our state is being so well led by Speaker Becker. So, thank you, Speaker Becker, your keynote speaker. All right, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much. Good to kind of
I'm wondering if Senator Tammy would like to have a few words with us today. Come on up. We have a wonderful group here, and she'd like to hear from you, Tammy.
Well, good evening, Gilpin. It's really nice to be here, and I am so delighted to be here as your senator this time for the first time. I do want to just give a shout out to all of you that worked so hard on my campaign last year during the 2018 election, knocked doors, donated to the cause, made phone calls, organized, all the things that you did. It was amazing what you pulled off here in Gilpin and really helped get me over the edge. It also was important because I think, as you know, we were able to take the majority in the Senate because of winning this seat and a couple of others, and it really, really did make a difference. Though we don't have a majority of women in the Senate, we do have a majority of women in our caucus. Which that's, I think, a first-time thing here in Colorado too. So that's pretty miraculous and a great thing. And so, because of capturing the Senate, we now have, and because we maintained the governor's office and maintained the House, of course, and grew that majority in the House, we have a trifecta now in the state of Colorado. So it does make things a lot easier to do work here in Colorado, very unlike what Congressman Neguse is facing, but we're all going to work on that in 2020 too. So, and KC did a great job covering all the highlights of the last session. It was pretty remarkable. I feel really honored to have been a part of that and to have been able to step up and vote and support those bills that were so just transformative here in the state of Colorado. My focus over the last 20 plus years has been K-12 education, and that continues to be a focus for me. But I'm on committees this summer that are the bookends of K-12. I'm on Early Childhood and School Readiness Committee. I'm also on Making Higher Education Attainable. It's not just affordability, it's all the other factors that have to do with getting kids into college or post-secondary options. It's not just college. And then keeping them there and ensuring that they are able to move forward with their degrees or vocations or whatever they are after, and then find work, at the end of that. So there's a lot of work that's going on this summer while we are out of session. I'm also on the Capital Development Committee, which is year-round, and I serve on the Zero Waste Committee as well. So there's lots of good work, and I'm just, again, really grateful for all of your support and that you helped us achieve what we did. In terms of capturing the majority in the Senate, which now allows us to really get this work done. So thank you so much for everything. I'm really grateful.
Well, at this time, I've been informed we have 30 minutes so we can go wild with our bidding. And as a reminder, this is our biggest fundraiser, so please bid often. And we do have some nice pieces of artwork that are at a good price. Lots of wine, so do that. And at 6:30 we'll close the bidding, and then we have people that have signed up to tally the bids, and they'll let us know who won what. But I want to thank every speaker, everybody that came tonight to help us, and we support you, and we know that you support us as well, so thank you so much. Enjoy. Oh, and also thank you to our lovely band. Aren't they great?